to unmute my microphone. So anyway, hi again, and welcome to episode 16 of Coffee with the Dead. I am Perry-Ann. If you don't know that by now, then I guess this must be your first time listening, so welcome. You can just let me know in chat if you're new or if you've been here already. We got a couple people stopping in already, so I'll go ahead and say hello there to 𝕬𝕦𝕚𝕚. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. I believe you're new here. Hi. AJ Ball, that's my dad. Hi. And Bishop Arts and Sciences once again. Welcome back. So, tonight we got what I have been building up to talk about. Elementals. Right? Last week I was saying how they have been coming up, topic of conversation so much lately. And my lipstick's really annoying me. Anyway, so I was saying last week how the topic of elementals has been coming up so much lately, and I, had plans to go in and elaborate about that. So we can do that. So last weekend, actually yesterday, I got back just long enough to go right back to sleep. It was pretty cool. I'm just trying to pull up my voice number right now. So yes, okay. There we are. Everything is set. So got back yesterday just in time to go to sleep. We went out to Gettysburg on Friday and stayed overnight. It was what Gettysburg is, what you would expect from Gettysburg, a legit spooky experience. For starters, we got quite a few voices recorded, and we got actual activity. So we started out at in the 𝕊𝕠𝕚 Mountains, which is just a bit outside of Gettysburg. It's like half hour, 40 minutes or so outside of Gettysburg. We went to the old furnace. It was just called Furnace Road, I believe. Furnace Road trail area. And we stopped at the remains of the furnace first, where nothing directly happened, but we did get a lot of activity with the music box. And we did get a lot of activity on our yes-no pyramid and the K2 meter as well. So that was cool. But then we went there's a trail like right next to it. It's all on a big loop. We went to a POW camp for the CCC. I don't know if it was the campgrounds or their group, just the CCC like themselves. But it was the CCC POW camp area. So, one thing I didn't know about Gettysburg is that more than the Civil War has made it famous. This POW camp is actually used in World War One. Was the most recent, and it was interrogation area, a hostage situation, also just a campground, so the enemy was there having a good old time, right? There again, the music box was going, not as active, not as much, so we didn't stay too long. Hey, Melissa. And then we went over to our second stop, which I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. We went over to, I believe it was a cemetery though, because yeah. Let's see. Let me try to think. Well, that may have been the case, but anyway, so we hiked back through a field, over like barbed wire and all this crap. Like we were really off the trail at this point, and we had a guide, so that was all well. But we ended up actually having some real activity there. Curtis has posted those videos and stuff on Facebook. So anyone who follows me there over at 𝕬𝕤𝕚𝕚 can see all those videos because he tagged me and everything. So they're on my timeline, really easy to find. You can kind of get a feel for where we were and what was happening there. The most notable thing is that when asked, "Do you want us to leave?" the first time, a branch actually fell and hit the leg of one of the camera guys. And then second time, about 20 minutes later, when asked again, "Do you want us to leave?" a whole entire tree fell. Like, there was no wind. There was absolutely like nothing going on, and like even our meters weren't being, very active. There wasn't much going on, but that tree fell for no good reason. It was a perfectly fine tree, and we went back. We left. We left when that happened for sure, and it was actually at the entrance to the campground, to the POW campground, where the tree was, and you could see it was splintered right in the middle, and you could see the trunk. It had fallen off into the woods right nearby. So, I mean, trees fall. It's not exactly abnormal, but this tree was up perfectly straight. It was healthy. It wasn't like leaning over when we got there or anything, and it wasn't windy. It hadn't rained. The ground was not wet. So, just a spooky coincidence, probably, but also kind of alarming, given the timing, since we had just asked, "Do you want us to leave?" So, notable. And then we went to Haunted Trails of Gettysburg. Now, this is an independently ran business. The owners live and work, like their business is also their home. So you're on their property, and they have a trail through the woods that you can walk on, and they point out like the hot spots and things. And then they have a cellar that you can go into, and reenactors and other folks have camped out on the property and stayed the night. Some have stayed the night in the cellar. We didn't do that, but we did, hang out for about 3 hours worth of investigating, and that was super cool. So, Haunted Trails of Gettysburg, I will link to them in show notes. Amanda and Terry are just the sweetest, most hospitable people, and very knowledgeable. Like, Terry has all these artifacts that he found on the property using his metal detector, and Amanda has her she knows all the spirits who are on the property. She's gotten to talk to them, and she tells you their stories and their names, and there's several graves on the property also, and she points those out, and it's just really interesting. Again, nothing directly spooky happened, but there are some really good EVPs that came up. I will post those for my Patreon members. The one, we got some good whistling, solid, loud whistling, and nobody in the group was whistling. If we were, we're the kind of group that we definitely would have commented on that to somebody, to the rest of the group. We would have given whoever was whistling a bunch of crap, what you doing? What song is that? Or something. And so that goes on for like a minute, and it's under people talking. It's loud, like right next to me, and then it goes distant, but it's like the same tune the whole time. Then just some stuff in the cellar. Once we got to the excuse me. Once we got to the haunted trails there, we were using this thing called, I think it was called like the plasma box. It's just like the portal, except except you don't hear it as it scans through all the channels. You know, it's just silent. It takes out all that static background noise. But sitting there live and listening to it versus going back and listening to a recording of what it put out is very, very different. And it actually makes a lot more sense once you go back and listen to it on the recording. So there were some things that actually had, you know, coordinated with things that we were talking about that we didn't catch in the moment, just because it comes by so fast and it's like distorted and stuff, you know. And just hearing it through a secondary device makes it more clear. And also, since you're not in the environment, you know, being in the place at the time is distracting also. But there's a couple things there, so that'll go up for my Patreon members. I'm just going to take a minute here and welcome them if they are listening. My Shadow Tier members, Lisa Rambo and Haven Van Houston. And I also have one EVP tier member, Chris Geyser. He will be the only one able to hear these clips, by the way, because they are only available to EVP tier memberships and higher. So if that is a benefit that you would like, go ahead and pop over to patreon.com/CWTD. It's abbreviated, and sign up at the EVP tier. I believe that is a $10 per month contribution, and the Shadow tier is a $5 a month contribution. And there's other goodies that you get along with that as well in each tier. So check it out. You can support for just a couple of months at a time, or you can sign up for the whole year. They don't lock you in, so you can, you know, just decide you want to cancel randomly one day, you know, and they will. No problem. You can do that. But, you know, I'd appreciate it. We also have some new stuff over at the Teespring store. So I am working on designing zip-up hoodies. We have pullover hoodies right now, but I want to get some zip-up ones in there just for some variety. And we still have the pet hoodies. I got face masks still, and neck gaiters also for people who don't like the things, you know, behind their ears. You can just boop, boop, pull it up, and it's also like doubles as like a little scarf neck warmer thingy. So check that out. That's over at teespring.com/shops/Coffee with the Dead, all hyphenated. That link is in show notes. So is the Patreon link. And also, you know, within like 1 to 2 days from now, so by Tuesday, I should have this up on Spotify and all those other Google and podcast and Alexa and Amazon and whatever apps, Pandora, I think, Audible, all those. So very good, very good. That catches us up. I've spent all day baking. Like, I made about 70 mini donuts, and then I think I ate probably 10 of them. So what? That equates to eating maybe, what, like 4 regular sized donuts, maybe? That's pretty bad. But I used stevia instead of white sugar, so I'm a little less guilty, maybe. Oh well. The phone lines are open tonight. 443-267-8217 if you'd like to call in. The topic tonight is elementals. I'm going to go a little deeper down that rabbit hole that I've started down the last 2 weeks. Actually, when we were at Haunted Trails of Gettysburg we went there Friday night. Amanda, the owner, she just brought it up of her own accord that like her daughter had an experience seeing an elemental, and I was just like, wow, once again, this topic keeps coming up. So I have to do the show. Like I have to. Okay. Like I wanted to do the whiteboard thing so I could really lay it out and show you exactly like every little part that I was talking about, because it's really a lot. It's just a lot, and having the visual helps. But I had been thinking about how to do a digital whiteboard, because it would be nearly impossible to set one up behind me with everything else I have in here, and trying to hold one, not gonna work. It has to be digital. It's the only way I could do it. So I hadn't quite figured out the digital part yet, so I hadn't done the episode. But this topic keeps coming up. I think it's like the third time in the last, I don't know, 2 weeks almost. So let's see. AJ Ball saying, was the guide a big help? Yeah, because they know the lay of the land and they know exactly where to go. So you have to almost have a guide at that point, because you're going off the trail and just off into a field of grass, and it is nighttime in Gettysburg and there are no lights. So actually at this point we were still in the McCall Mountains, so even worse. Even more far out. You're just up in the mountains, so you can't see your hand in front of your face without a light. So having the guide was almost definitely essential. So elementals, I gave you guys the phone number 443-267-8217 if you want to call in and talk about those. It is a very broad category to basically, I think what it's doing, from the way it's been brought up to me recently, I think the word more so talks to like a couple different categories, or a couple different entities, or energy forms, as opposed to just like being like this one very specific thing. I think elementals are a very specific thing, like I had been saying last week and whatnot. Like they're the purest form of any energy. But I think that people use the term elemental to talk about things that are not necessarily elementals. So I think it kind of becomes an umbrella term when really it needs to be used. Its proper use is not used. So to some people, like, elementals are shadow figures, and because they don't have a distinct shape or look to them, or any real way to interact, people just say, oh, it's an elemental, because it's some kind of entity, some kind of energy. Or sometimes people call apparitions elementals because that's their word of choice. How we can also say entity, we can say spirit, we can say energy, or we can say apparition, or we can just say ghost. Some people just say elemental. Now, what do you guys think? Now, there's a couple of you in chat. There's like 4 people in tonight. Have you heard the term elemental? Do you use it? How do you use it? What do you think in that regard? Now, I know, the main use for it, to me, like when I hear it, I instantly go to fae folk and think of fairies. And I started to talk about that a bit last week. How there are the fairy elementals, and there's the earth, air, water, fire fairies. Just like there are the four main elements, there's fairies for all of those. Now within those four categories are like other species of those elementals. So in the like water elementals, they have sylphs, 𝕬𝕬𝕚𝕬𝕬𝕬𝕬𝕬𝕬𝕬𝕬𝕬𝕬𝕬𝕬𝕬, and then they also have like mermaids fit into that category. Then you got like the earth realm, that it's brownies and gnomes. They have a color. They're very brown because dirt and earth, and they focus on matters that are grounded. A lot of times they like live in floorboards in people's homes and play pranks. For some reason, the earth elementals seem to be pranksters. And then there is the fire elementals, and there you have salamanders, and you have it's not called a phoenix, but there's a bird. If anyone can remember the name of that, let me know. But they are made out of fire. They're made out of that element, so they're very red and orange in color. And that also comes to play into the idea of elementals looking different and still being called elementals. So there's like the flame, there's the fairy with the flame wings, who represents like the fire elemental. But then if you see a salamander, it's like a lizard. There's another representation. And then if you see the bird, it might be a phoenix. I think I'm going off into like a different culture there with that term. But that those are all fire elementals. Those are all elementals, even though they look different. So they don't all have to look the same, but what makes it an elemental is that it represents an element. So it's like made of water, made of fire, made of dirt. That's why brownies and gnomes are brown, because they're made from earth. And then you also have the air fairies, which are the last ones, and there you have like nymphs and like pixies. Oh, pixies are they're kind of a mix. I mean, they fly, but they're forest spirits, and they're known to protect the trees and plant life and things. So, in terms of elementals, I always jump to thinking fairies. But, like I said, there have been times like Friday night, for example, when people have just randomly started talking and saying, "Oh yeah, I experienced an elemental," and it's like, well, okay, that just kind of came out of nowhere. It's just we weren't talking about that or anything. It's just we were doing a paranormal investigation, so people open up and tell you things that have happened to them, and I'm like, okay, well, tell me more. And then they explained this figure that they saw, and I'm like, okay, see, I would have called that an apparition, a sighting. To me, that doesn't seem very like element based. That's not earth, air, wind, fire. That's just okay. You saw a figure, but they use the term elemental. So I asked them, what does that mean to them? And they said it means, an energy form that can materialize, and it's using the elements around them to materialize. So I'm like, okay, well, fair enough. So in that regard, it's just another term for the same thing. Instead of, it's not a very specific thing. So then you get into having to break down titles and stuff. So then you have to say, like, okay, well, like, fire elemental or shadow elemental, you know, and that way you know you're talking about um, sightings that are a shadow or sightings that have fire involved with them. So once again, I gave that number out. It's 443-267-8217. If you want to call and chat about elementals or your experiences with them, go ahead. I am fairly certain that I have the phone line open tonight. Looks to be open. And let's see. So, going back to elementals again, it even takes me into like, my days practicing Wicca. Way back when I was just a early teenage years, and you would use the elements to create an elemental, and the elemental then would be able to go out and do your bidding. So if you use aspects of earth and fire, you'd have, a candle, for example, because you're using, beeswax, which comes from the earth, and you're using that wick, which is rope, which is also earthly, and or twine, or whatever, some binding material, and then you add the fire element by lighting the candle, and then you take that melted wax and you kind of shape it into like a little buddy, little shape, whatever comes to you, to use to make. And because you melted that wax, it's imbued with the fire element. So in theory, you're using earth and fire, and that's your elemental. And then you invoke your deity, and poof, bloop, 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 the thing does the job, and then that energy is gone, and the item is essentially just cold, dead, or it's just an item at that point. It's just a thing of wax, and you can keep it, or you can destroy it. Now, other practices, or say like, if you once your objective, has been met, once your elemental has done its job, then you have to destroy it. Otherwise, it continues to live, and if it continues to live, you have to continue to feed it or give it offerings, or you have to keep it happy. Otherwise, it'll turn on you. So you have to destroy it. Now in Wicca, like I said, the energy just goes from it. When the bidding is done, it's like, okay, I did my job, bye. And it just leaves on its own. Whether you feel that, the task has been accomplished or not that's another thing. That's another issue to on it all on its own there. So, that's pretty much just how I feel on the topic. I feel like there is a very specific definition of elemental, and I feel like it is not being used properly. I feel like it's being used as more of a broad way of talking about entities and experiences. So, I don't know if maybe I'm just a little opinionated there or what, but I feel like if it doesn't, really embody, if it doesn't represent just 100%, like if it's not just like pure fire, water, earth, air, light related, like you can't call it an elemental. Then it's just like a thing, like it's a entity, it's a spirit, it's something else, Like, I wouldn't call poltergeist activity being like a wind elemental. I wouldn't relate those as being the same. But some people might. They'd be like, oh, there was I was visited by an elemental, and they blew over the water bottle or whatever. So there's just that's something I've learned, is that people are very broad when talking about elementals. So I have to kind of open my mind more to that and not just assume that they're talking about, the true embodiment of an element, that they're just using that as that's their way of saying that they saw a thing or a thing happened to them. Now, again, if you guys have had any experiences, just let me know with elementals, with fairies, things like that. Or if you have other thoughts or your own definitions of, just chime in. We have a good bit of time left, and as long as there's no more questions popping up in chat, which I don't see, then just move on. Now, I had expected to, think of like a half hour worth of stuff on elementals to talk about, but I'm done. I got through it pretty quickly. So, moving along to whatever's in my eye. Let me know too if you guys have been listening. Ooh, you see that little black dot? That's eyeliner that I put in my eyeball earlier and I'm just now finding. Let me know how you guys listen most. Like if most of you are, listening to me on Spotify, or if you come in and listen live, like just give me a, just leave me a comment or send me a message on Facebook and, just let me know. Yeah, Melissa says she follows me more on YouTube. Yeah, okay, that's cool. So I am all the way ready for Halloween. It looks like there is either going to be a live werewolves investigation on Halloween, or there is going to be a little something else in the works that will be just another virtual event. So either way, there is going to be a event through the book face. It'll be on there. It'll be on. I think I'll do it through Coffee with the Dead, unless we end up doing the live investigation. Then it'll be Spirits Wake. So good things coming, and also I am running a costume contest online on my page. If you win, and by win I mean you have the most likes from everyone else on the costume contest thread, which will open up the week of Halloween, so about 2 more weeks out, then I will send you a special little gift. Let's see, what else? Well, there's a lot going on, but it's not a lot different. I'm still going out, every week with werewolves. And so, I'm busy in that regard, but there's not a lot to really update y'all on. One thought, just jumping back to Friday night, is that it was mentioned that possibly the tree falling was by a Bigfoot nearby. Now, Bigfoot is thought to be a couple of things. For one, a known cryptid, an actual living creature, that is just mysterious and weird and impossible to capture. Another is that he's an alien, or she is an alien. And the other is that Bigfoot is an interdimensional being that actually exists on a separate plane than we do, but can move back and forth between those planes. So perhaps there was a Bigfoot nearby at the time, and they are responsible for having knocked over the tree. And the way it was splintered, I don't know a lot about trees and whatnot, but the guys that I was with said that the way it was splintered looks like it was forcibly knocked over or cut or something, like, because the way it's splintered, there were just like jagged pieces of wood sticking out from the bottom part of the trunk, which they said wouldn't be there if it just fell naturally. So that kind of brought the Bigfoot topic up, and I don't know, maybe. It just happened. Too great of a coincidence to not be related to what we were doing, you know? I don't know. Like I said, if it had been wet out or something, maybe. Or even, like, going back to the topic of elementals now, I know I kind of jump all over the place in my stories, but just going back to elementals, like, it could have been a wind elemental, or, I mean, not wind, an air elemental, or I guess even earth, you know, maybe. But they're not usually the destructive type. They're usually small and mischievous. And they could have just, you know, been protecting their part of the woods that we were in and not wanted us around. So I don't know. It's just a lot of that was just yeah. I mean, it happened. It's a thing. Bishop Arts and Sciences says maybe the thing we call Bigfoot is really just another kind of elemental. Yeah, like it was brought up on Friday that not only is he thought to be all these things, an alien, you know, an actual known cryptid with bones and skin and, you know, everything else. And, you know, most interestingly, the interdimensional being that can just kind of slip back and forth between dimensions as they want. But also, wouldn't Bigfoot represent an earth elemental? It's, I mean, they're known to be, you know, these big giant creatures, you know, obvious protectors. And there's been reports of seeing them, hearing them, even seeing them with smaller Bigfoots, speculated to be their children. So I would think that, you know, given that we've mentioned tonight already that elementals have been described, you know, by all these other terms other than just the actual element, that Bigfoot could very well be an earth elemental. It's not a far-fetched idea. In fact, it makes a lot of sense because these elementals are thought to be energy beings. They're thought to be, you know, spirits, you know, all these kinds of things that would be nearly impossible to see or to capture, let alone. Bigfoot does fit right along in the category with the entity, you know, category, and could easily fall into the elemental. And he's brown, so or thought to be anyway. In this part of the country. Now in other parts of the country, you know, there's like the Yeti, there's the swamp, what's it called? Not swamp monster, swamp something or other. Oh boy, I can't remember. Swamp something. But anyway, he's thought to be more of like a greenish mossy brown, and obviously in the swamps more down south. But in this area, yeah, he's a woodland creature and brown. Not quite like a Wookiee, but similar. I would think the way I think of Bigfoot, it looks very similar to Chewbacca. Let's see. Yeah. Also, yeah. Melissa's saying also like the idea of a Bigfoot being a guardian versus an elemental. It's very possible, and Bishop says his guess is yes to an earth elemental, but he has very little experience with elementals and scarcely any opinion on them. Swamp ape in Florida. Yeah, ape. That's what it is. Swamp ape. Yeah, so I would think some sort of, yeah, elemental guardian. Yeah, and elementals aren't known, they're protectors. That's what, the whole thing. The purest form of the element that they represent, and they're there to protect the element that, that they're, the environment that their element thrives in. So, for water, the ocean would be protected, and, the beach and surrounding areas that enable there to be that body of water would be all protected. So that's, as close as I can get to really breaking it down. If you still have any questions, or if you want to continue conversation on elementals with me after the show, feel free to get in touch. You can email me, ℧𝕕𝕤𝕤. Oh, that is my old email address. Have I been giving out that the whole time? Anyway, it is ℧𝕕𝕤𝕤@cwtd.co. It's just my name. And you can get at me on Facebook. It is facebook.com/the_℧𝕕𝕤𝕤, or Coffee with the Dead, or Spirits Wake. And both those pages have groups under the same name associated with them that you can join for more like, message board style kind of chatter about everything paranormal and spooky and parapsychology and just everything weird and unexplained. How else can you reach me? You can call me and leave a voicemail at the line is 443-267-8217, and just let me know the best way to get back in touch with you, and I will. Yep, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of, so it's best really if you just send me a message. It's the best way for me to see that you're there, or email, because I do check my email quite often. See, Bishop says his favorite hypothesis. Oh, yawning. Sorry. It was a lot of work making those donuts. His favorite hypothesis about Bigfoot is that this is what you get when humans become feral. Like when a pig runs away from the farm and goes wild, it gets bigger and gets covered with shaggy hair. Yeah, and then it's a boar, right? So, if anything, Bigfoot is, I think, if it's not one of these, like, spiritual, like, if it's not a cryptid, if it's not one of these, like, paranormal, entities, I think that it's like the alligator and whatnot, just survived evolution unchanged for all this time, and is just something left over from who knows however long ago, dinosaurs or before, kind of like the original caveman, still thumping around. But I also think if it was any kind of thing, like flesh and blood creature, that we would have found undeniable evidence by now. We would have found bones, or it'd be a creature that exists like so deep, like in the Amazon or Antarctica, or so deep, like in the bottom of the ocean, that we haven't even experienced a Bigfoot yet. We just have this idea. Like, it's just still an undiscovered creature. And maybe we just have stories that have been passed down, and then those stories make us think we see something, and I don't know. But I really don't think that it is like a flesh and blood creature. I think that it is definitely something on the paranormal end. I like the idea of Bigfoot being interdimensional, like being able to slip through the veil, because it goes along with a lot of Bigfoot abduction stories. You know, people who have been taken by Bigfoot, how they just kind of disappear and they lose track of time, and it's very similar to an alien abduction also, which is why Bigfoot also gets lumped into the alien potential category. But I think Bigfoot is of Earth, earthly entity, so possibly an Earth elemental. And there's a lot of great stories out there that make it really convincing, but there's also a lot of great stories out there that make it more entertaining than convincing. So who knows? Who knows what or who or how that tree got knocked over? Yeah, yeah. So Bishop Arts and Sciences says Google Gigantopithecus. Oh my god, I butchered that word so hard. Gigantopithecus. Gigantopithecus. Gigantopithecus, right? Possibly? Is that how you say it? Oh boy. It's like Latin or something. Anyway. Google that sometime. Yeah, isn't that, that's like the giant, there's like a giant ape creature that I think archaeologists and stuff have actually found proof of having existing. Perfect pronunciation, he says. Yeah, which time? Because I think I tried to say that word about 5 different times. Gigantopithecus. I keep expecting there to be another T. You guys do know that, like, I'm an English major, and I'm actually my career outside of this fun stuff that I don't get paid to do. What I get paid to do is write and use the English language properly. Yeah, just gonna make fun of myself right there. Ah, my last attempt was correct, he says. Very good, very good. Well, that about, I think, sums it up for me tonight. I'm really trying, I know I keep saying it, but I'm really trying to get the interviews back to being a thing. Because I can't catch my breath enough when I sit here and talk by myself, so I end up just yawning so that I can get enough air until the next time that I run out of air and have to yawn to get enough in me. Anyway, so yeah, I dropped all my contact information and the phone number. Do check out Teespring. Remember, if you don't see something but you want it, you can also drop me a message and I might be able to have it made for you. I got my first custom, not casual, my first custom order request. Just last week, actually, a person asked if they could have the mug that, quote, the professor, unquote, had during his interview. So that professor being Bishop Arts and Sciences. Yeah, he has a one-off mug that has both logos on it. So it has been requested and it shall be reproduced. Just one. And let's see. Yeah, if you buy stuff from the Teespring store, just send me your picture so I can post you as a show off and other people can see what this stuff looks like. I just dropped my prices. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I just dropped my prices by like almost 50%. Plus, if you saw the ad that I ran, it had a 30% off coupon code in it, which I am not reposting, just so y'all know. But you can do some investigating and find that post and find the coupon code. It is good up until Halloween at midnight. So good luck finding that. And what else have we got? I'm really excited about those fanny packs, so if y'all want to like rock those, that'd be great. They were really expensive. They really, really were when I first posted them. But I got them down as cheap as I could to still make any kind of money. Like, I'm literally, like, the stuff up there on Teespring, you see those prices? I get between $2 and $5 from each item. So just think about that when you're on the store there and complaining about the prices. Let's see. Yeah, that. Again, I am fully summed up. So, let's see. Bishop Arts and Sciences says, I can tell you right now, I'm gonna bury myself in Coffee with the Dead merch. Well, if you mean that figuratively, maybe it'll be a hoodie to keep you warm when you're in the ground. I can, oh shoot. By request, I can make a comforter or a fleece blanket. So, also keep you extra snuggly. Just let me know. Like, you have to message me and ask for this stuff, you know, or if you think of something that I haven't already mentioned, just hit me up and ask. I'm more than happy to do all that I can to get you whatever you're looking for with the Coffee with the Dead logo on it. Whatever kind of item. But if you mean bury yourself in Coffee with the Dead merch, as in you're going to buy all of it, it's just going to be all over your house, well, then, I appreciate you a lot. And you will be my #1 model. Yeah, I cannot, that I know of at least yet, have branded coffins made or coffin lining, but I could probably have a sheet set made with the logo all over it, like a repeating pattern, and you could just line your coffin with that sheet. Have to put that in your will. I am looking into possibly making my own coffee brew, which only makes sense since this show is Coffee with the Dead and I do sell coffee mugs, and I should have Coffee with the Dead coffee. It is only right. Tables, toilet paper. Look, I'm not trying to pull a Gene Simmons here and have my name on everything, or yeah. No. I would really appreciate a Coffee with the Dead coffee table, though. But I kind of feel like that would have to be something that, you know, a loving fan made, or, you know, when people start making their own stuff because they're just so into, something, you know, their own themed items. Yeah, exactly. Merchandising. Like, in, what's the movie? Spaceballs. Like in Spaceballs, when, little Yoda, not Yoda McDude is all, like, showing off the dolls and all that. Yeah. So, I am looking into coffee, though. Despite all the other great suggestions, I am looking into branded coffee. Search, okay, Coffee with Dead 2. The search for more money. No, not searching for money. No. I actually don't even keep track of how much I spend or make or whatever with this because I don't care. This is not meant to be a business, even though, on the books and all this is a business and, whatnot. I am an LLC, but, and I do want to open a physical store one day, but this is all about the impact that I can have on people and uh, helping them as much as possible and offering my healing and Reiki services and any spiritual counseling or advising or whatever, things like that, whatever I can do to educate people about all these weird things and put them at ease about their own experiences. That's my goal here, and making any money is just just great, but not the goal. Unlike you know, selling them color street nail strips that I'm selling. Now that is purely for profit on my end. I want to make money. I want to make enough money to uh you know be able to splurge and treat myself every now and then off of them nail strips. So that's the end of me for tonight. Thanks so much for listening. Stay in touch, get in touch, spread the word, do the thing, buy my merch, and remember, the veil is thin.